Hi, Tiff. Thank you so much for joining us on the Engage with Tech podcast. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thank you, Callum. Thanks for having me on.
Good. It's interesting because today we're talking about something slightly off tech, slightly off anything we've spoken about before. We're talking about career pivots. So let's start off with how your career has gone so far. You started off in engineering, then you went to one-to-one coaching for female founders, and then now you're in financial advice.
Yeah. So when you got in contact with me to talk about an idea for this podcast, especially for career changes, people who are considering a change in their career, it's definitely something that I'm really passionate about talking about because I think that we often grow up in a society where we think there's a linear path for your life. You know, you
Hmm.
finish school, maybe you do some further study, then you get a full-time job in an industry that should serve you until retirement.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the belief that I had at the start as well. So it did take a lot of personal growth and a lot of mindset work to change careers. But yeah, I'm happy to give you a whistle stop tour of my career path so far, and maybe if you've got any kind of thing that you want to delve into more deeply, I can answer those questions.
That's perfect. So, first of all, what made you change between engineering, which is very technical, to one-to-one coaching for female founders?
So I worked in the construction industry in engineering for about 8 years. So
Hmm.
I finished my mechanical engineering degree. So I went to university in Melbourne, Australia. So that's where I grew up.
Sure.
Got a job in Melbourne. Was lucky enough to transfer to their London office the year after I started work, which was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that career served me really well in terms of getting me to grips with what corporate life is like and
Hmm.
working with lots of different types of people, often being the odd one out in the room. There's not that many females in mechanical engineering, especially not in construction, and also not many people who have, like a Chinese ethnicity in the room as well, especially in
Hmm.
the UK. So, yeah, exposing me to lots of different situations. I would say that I never was that passionate about engineering. You know, I fell
Okay.
into engineering studies because I felt like there was an expectation for me to do something at university. Didn't really know what else I wanted to do, and I was good at maths and physics, so
Yeah.
I thought that is what I should do. So kind of fell into that role, just followed the path.
Hmm.
Just went with opportunities that came up and it landed me into this role in construction. I knew for a very long time while I was working in engineering that it wasn't the job that I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But I also didn't know what else I could do. I kind of felt a little bit trapped and stuck. And I just felt a lot of pressure to stay in that role because I know that. So my parents, I was actually born in Hong Kong and we moved when I was a baby to Australia, and my parents knew that I would have better opportunities there. So I knew in the back of my mind they gave up so much. They sacrificed so much for me and my education and my career. I felt this obligation of having to stay in that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that in some way or other. So actually breaking out of engineering and moving into that leadership coaching role was a really tough one. It, it
Yeah. Of
was it
course.
was really difficult. But yeah, I think the only reason I had the courage to change was because my husband had so much faith in me
Well.
and
Yeah.
was, you know, kind of talk to me about like this is not the only path for you. You can do
Mhm.
something else if this isn't serving you. Why not change? Why not try something else? You can always go back if it doesn't work out. So that's kind of the first foray into how I started.
Yeah. That that's such an interesting point. Actually, is having someone else by your side, actually having the confidence in you to push on and to actually see your dream as well. I think that's such a important point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about it now and I think, oh, well, that's such an obvious thing for me to have done. But when you're in it, when you think the norm is to follow that linear career path and you don't know anyone else who's broken out of that, it can
Yeah.
be really hard to change.
So would you say you've spoken about your husband's support, but would you say that there are any pivotal moments where other people may have inspired your career shift?
Yeah, I think that actually listening to podcasts was a really big one for me. I remember, I didn't even know what coaching really was at that
Yeah,
stage, but I knew I was so desperate to leave this job, like this job in engineering, but I just only because I knew it wasn't right for me. Like I knew the people around me were so passionate about what they did, and I just didn't feel that. So I
yeah,
knew that I needed to make a shift, but I didn't know what it would have been. And I actually listened to a couple of podcasts where people were talking about their journeys, like this, talking about their
yeah,
journeys of changing from corporate to being self-employed or moving from their linear career path to do something completely different. And I think listening to those conversations really helped to normalize that shift.
hmm,
Whereas before, I'd never met anyone who had done it. So,
yeah,
yeah, I think that was a really pivotal thing, coupled with also realizing that coaching was a thing to start off with
yeah,
and something that I had been doing for a long time within my engineering career. So, as I was becoming an engineering leader in the team, so I led a group of 30 engineers and project managers.
hmm,
I was actually coaching them when I was doing my one-to-ones with them.
yeah,
I was doing a lot of finding out where they wanted to go, where they are right now, what gaps they needed to fill, and how to get them there.
yeah,
So I realized that that was something that I was naturally good at and something that I'd had a lot of practice with and I enjoyed doing.
hmm.
So once all of those pieces of the puzzle clicked together, I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to go out and do this.
So was it a big leap into coaching, or was it something that you started on the side while you were working in construction?
It was a huge leap,
Wow.
and I would say I probably went against everyone's advice in terms of moving from being employed to self-employed. I
Yeah,
hadn't set anything up apart from like a holding page of a website saying this is coming soon.
yeah,
I didn't have any clients lined up. I had no business experience. I just quit my job and did it. I
wow,
think uh, it probably sounds quite foolish, but back then I didn't have children back then.
yeah,
I didn't have as many financial responsibilities, so I think I could do it. But it's definitely not the advice that I would give anyone else.
yeah. It's the sort of advice that Simon Squibb talks about, isn't it? He does talk about being uncomfortable and pushing yourself, and even if that means failure, you're actually going to be learning from that experience, and you can iterate the process as you go. But yeah, that's a huge leap, especially when you have the job security and probably financial security being in construction. It's a huge leap.
Yeah, it is. And I think, it wasn't just my own voice, but I could kind of subconsciously hear everyone else's thoughts going, what is she doing?
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
in a well-paid like senior engineering role. She's given that all up to start a coaching business. What is coaching even? Can you
yeah.
make money from that? Is that a real thing? So I talked a bit about mindset shifts, and I think that was the biggest one. Doing the thing even though everyone else thought that it was crazy and potentially I was thinking it was a little bit crazy as well at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Is having that self confidence as well. You spoke about having the support of your husband as well, but yeah, it's having that self confidence initially to take that leap. Where do you think that self confidence actually came from then?
It's funny that you say about confidence because I definitely didn't feel confident at
Yeah,
all. In fact, it was the complete opposite. And I think it was really ironic because so I first started my coaching business as a leadership coach for women in male dominated workplaces. So working with a lot of women in tech and women in engineering, helping them to get to those leadership positions despite being the only one in the room.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was to do with coaching on confidence, yet I felt like such a fraud because I felt such a lack of confidence moving into that new role.
Yeah.
And I think that there are times where you will feel less confident, but having the knowledge that if you keep practicing, if you keep going, you will feel confident at it at some stage.
Yeah.
You just have to stick with it. So I think there is probably a ramp up to feeling confidence, and that is maybe that's courage rather than confidence, kind of
Yeah.
being scared but doing it anyway.
Yeah. I love that. I was reading a book recently called Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, and he says that the way to build confidence is to fail. Is to be pushing yourself and to be failing, because that essentially means you're growing, and growth
Yeah,
builds confidence.
I so agree with that. And I think there is so much on social media at the moment about feeling confident, which I totally agree with. But I
Mhm.
think the part of the conversation that's now missing is exactly what you just said about, yeah, you do have to feel uncomfortable. It's not going to be all sunshine and unicorns and
Mhm.
rainbows all the time. Like there will be a period of time where it feels uncomfortable when you're doing something new. So
Yeah.
whether that's changing jobs or changing careers, going from employed to self-employed or vice versa, there is that period of discomfort, which means growth.
Mhm. And do you think there were any points where you actually doubted the leap that you'd made?
100%.
Yeah.
At some stages, every day.
Hmm.
Um, and then it got less, it was maybe every few days, and then it gets to the point where you feel a lot more confident and comfortable with where you are.
Yeah.
And I can't say that anyone, especially a business owner, can feel confident about their decision every single day.
No.
There's so much riding on it. So yeah, I think you kind of get used to that feeling of discomfort and trusting that inner voice of,
Yeah.
okay, this might feel not quite right at this moment, but I know my future vision is for me to be in this role. Like doing what I'm currently doing is going to get me to where I want to be in the future.
Yeah. And it's having that intention that you've made that choice. You're going to make it work no matter what. It might look like the wrong choice initially, but no, you're going to stick with it, and you're going to have intention to make that work. I think that's such an important point as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, um, yeah, you spoke about how it was one big leap into the coaching, but how did you plan for it? Because you said you hadn't really set up a website or anything. How did you plan for it, or did you not? Was it more of a process as you went along?
Yeah, I would say I did very little planning
Yeah.
for it. It ended up working for me, which is great. But I guess I have now pivoted into another career. So this is, I'm currently a financial advisor,
Yeah.
and making this second pivot, I have the foresight from all the mistakes that I made in my first career pivot, which has been really interesting actually. I've learned so much in terms of planning for this career that I didn't
Mhm.
last time. So perhaps I can kind of talk a bit about what I've learned this time around.
Yeah, do it. Go ahead.
So I know that the last time I went from being employed, being surrounded by a team of engineers, to being self-employed and doing everything myself.
Hmm.
And that was a huge change. There's no workplace banter. There's no one you can just turn around to and ask
Yeah.
their advice or opinion. So in that career, in that coaching business, I had to learn how to be very self-sufficient, do everything myself. I didn't always like that.
Yeah.
So when I transitioned to becoming a financial advisor, I chose a study path and a path in which I could be supported by someone, a team of people, other students who were going through a similar career transition. So I was lucky enough to be accepted onto an academy
Okay.
to change careers, and I was in a room full of 20 other people who were of all different stages of life, all different ages, but everyone was making a change. So it was
Yeah.
really nice to be in a room full of people making the change at the same time as me,
Yeah.
going through the same challenges and normalizing those discomforts.
Hmm.
So I knew from the first time I didn't have that, and I wanted that for the second.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's one of the biggest things then is having a network of people that can offer you advice and guidance?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think for my first business as a coach, I
Yeah.
had to build that for myself. I realized that that was something that I was missing. So I did a lot of networking events, joined some group coaching programs, and that was where I kind of found that network. But I
Hmm.
always came back to needing other people who were at different stages. So some people who were maybe not quite yet at my stage and having some of the challenges that I had before,
Yeah.
and realizing, oh, I actually have some advice to give that person that makes me feel quite good that I can give
Yeah.
back. But also being connected with people who are further along in the journey as well, and learning from their mistakes and getting that advice from them. So, yeah, I would say for any career changes, if you're able to connect with someone who has made the same change as you or has made a completely different change, but you're able to draw on some of those experiences, it can be really, really helpful.
Sure. And do you think one of the best places for this is LinkedIn if you can't get into groups like you made it you managed to get into?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is still super underutilized for this connection. And if you
Yeah.
think of the name LinkedIn, it is for you to link in with people, not just post about, what kind of brunch you had that morning. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is, it is really a place for you to connect with people. And I think it's because it's still underutilized in a genuine way. I
Mm.
guess we all have people trying to sell us things on LinkedIn now, but
Yeah.
if you're genuinely trying to connect with people, to have a conversation, to ask their advice and opinions on things, people are generally quite generous and helpful with that.
Yeah.
And I've done that on a number of occasions. So, say I've listened to a podcast such as this, I
Hmm.
will reach out to someone who I thought had a really interesting conversation and just say, I really connected with what you were saying. These were the things that I really enjoyed about your conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I really wanted to talk to that person, I would say, would you ever have a chance to have a quick chat?
Yeah. I think that is such a underestimated thing that you can do is actually reach out and connect with these people that you find interesting because not only they appreciate it but it's a chance for them to give back even more and for you to get some information yourself and connect potentially in person or online.
Yeah.
um, so let's talk a little bit about transferable skills then, because I'm sure there'll be a load of skills that you've transferred from construction to one-to-one coaching with female founders and female construction workers, and then now into financial advisory.
Yeah, so many transferable skills. And I think one of the things that I found really difficult to see when I was in that phase of wanting to transition from engineering to becoming a coach
Mm.
was seeing what those were. Now that I've done it, it's very obvious. So I
Yeah,
can share what
yeah.
those are. So, yeah, moving from kind of construction to starting my coaching business, the biggest transferable skill was communication. So, communicating with different types of people, walking into a room not knowing what mood that other person's going to be in, and being able to navigate on the spot, understanding what someone is saying versus what they actually want. So, kind of reading
Yeah.
between the lines and being able to decipher, okay, this person is saying this. What does that mean that they want? What do I want from that situation, and how can we make it work for the both of us?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, absolutely, working in construction just exposed me to meeting lots of people that I wouldn't normally have met in my usual social circles. And then moving from coaching to financial advice, you'd be surprised, but it's a very similar job in many respects.
Mm,
Technically very different, but in terms of the people skills, it is still sitting down with someone one on one. It is still figuring out where they are right now, where they want to be in the future, and what gaps there are that
yeah.
need to be bridged.
Hmm.
Just that from a financial advice perspective, it's using money as the tool to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Whereas in the coaching business, it is using potentially different mindset tools, different leadership styles and strategies to bridge that gap.
So, what would you say to someone who's wants to take a leap and change their career path, but is unsure on how to do it, unsure when to do it?
So I guess the first bit of advice would be to zoom out. So I think a lot of the time people want to change careers because they're not enjoying their job, they're not
Hmm.
enjoying the current situation, and so they're almost wanting to make an escape, which I totally understand. I've been there before.
Yeah.
But when you want to make a change, you really need to zoom out and think about the bigger picture. So have a think about where do you want to be in the future. Actually sit down and think, okay, so Tiffany in 10 years time, what is she doing? You might not have all the answers, by the way, but
Hmm.
actually, what is she doing? What's her lifestyle look like? What does she have that she doesn't have right now?
Yeah.
How does she want to feel going into work every day? Is she working every day? Are there additional family members, for example? So just
Hmm.
thinking about big picture, what does that future version of yourself do? What does she want? What does she want to feel like? How does she even, hold herself when she walks down the street? What's she wearing? All of those details can really help you to then zoom back into today
Mm.
and think about, okay, so that's what I want in the future. If I'm going to think about different career changes, is this going to feed into that future version of myself? Is this moving me a step closer to that future version of myself?
Yeah, I think that's so important as well as is zooming out. Is actually seeing that bigger picture and seeing how the change would affect your lifestyle or how you want your life to be. Essentially, is those big questions that you've got to ask first, isn't it? And then you zoom back in the smaller details. Yeah, I love that. What about for someone who wants to step into being self-employed and isn't sure how to do it?
Yeah, so I think that there's so many resources now. I
Mm.
think every second podcast is a business podcast
Yeah,
teaching you
yeah.
how to do it. I think the challenge is probably not finding advice, but sticking to advice that you want to follow yourself. There's so
Hmm.
much noise. There's so many people on LinkedIn telling you this is the tool you must use, or I've got this 7-step strategy to
Yeah.
sales without friction, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And all those things worked for that person. That's why they're selling that thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of soul searching when you become self-employed, thinking
Mm.
about what are my values? How do I want to approach these things? And when you're given advice or when you're consuming advice online, filter it through those values, filter it through how you want to be doing things, and actually question, okay, this person's saying I must follow these 7 steps, but is step 3 and 4 feeling a bit icky to me? Like I don't really want to do that. Why does that feel uncomfortable? Is it
Hmm.
because it goes against my value? So really, having to develop that critical mindset and filtering through your own values, what you want, how you want to come across, who you want to
Yeah.
serve, instead of just kind of following advice blindly. I
Yeah.
would say that is a skill that has to be learned, and also you probably need to make those mistakes yourself before
Hmm.
before you find the perfect way of doing it for yourself.
And would you say that that person needs a genuine passion if they want to step into that self-employed world? Because ultimately, surely that's going to be the thing that carries you through.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I guess there are a lot of self-employed people out there who run successful businesses that they don't
Mm.
really love. So I guess I
Yeah.
can't say you must have passion in order to be successful.
Yeah.
I I would say it makes it a lot easier though. So when during those times when it's difficult, and it will be difficult, and you will feel alone at some points in time,
Hmm.
yeah, having that passion for what you do and understanding your why
Yeah.
can get you through those times. But then also, that can't be the only leg that you stand on. There has to also be support from other people around you. So friends and family, for example, or maybe some other business owners at a similar stage to you being able
Hmm.
to support you. Other areas of your life being supportive as well. So I know on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, you had someone on talking about fitness and wellness and how that
Yeah.
supports your career and career changes.
Hmm.
Things like that can be really important as well. So I'd always say your life is a bit like a table. It's got several legs to stand on. So one might be your relationships, one's your career, one's your health and fitness, your mindset.
Hmm.
If one of those legs falls off, so if your self-employment world is not going well, at least those other legs are there to help hold you up. But
Yeah.
if all of them are kind of a bit wobbly, it makes it really difficult.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk a little bit about what you offer then, with your financial advisory. So what are the biggest financial blind spots for those looking to change career?
Yeah, sure. So I guess with those who are looking to change career, the things I would talk about in terms of being a financial, with my financial advice hat on, are not just the short term plans. I think a lot of people focus on, okay, how much am I getting paid now? And how much am I likely to make in my new role, whether that's being employed by someone else or starting my own business? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's good to look at, obviously, but what people miss the most is two things, really. One is planning longer term,
Hmm.
and one is planning for when things go wrong.
Okay.
So I would say that's most of my job as a financial advisor. I'm a little bit like a personal trainer in some respects, where I help people to create good habits with money, create behaviors that's going to help them to grow, help them to avoid financial injury, but also a
Hmm.
little bit like an architect, where I can help someone build and design a financial future that they want to grow into.
Hmm.
So we're very good at planning for the future, for the near future. So next
Yeah.
year, I want to make X amount of salary. Whereas we're not so good at planning for long term future. So, what
Mm.
will it look like when I retire, for example? Will I have enough money to live the lifestyle that I want? So, a lot of us
Yeah.
want to have extravagant retirement. So, what are you doing today in order to grow that tree for tomorrow? So yeah, having a think long term. What is your strategy in life? Where do you want to get to, and what is the income that you need in order to get there, or what do you need to put away today in order to reach those goals?
Yeah.
And then the second thing being planning for when things go wrong.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, life throws us curveballs.
Mm.
Especially as you get older, you just hear more and more stories of people falling ill and not able to work, or
Hmm.
someone being injured and not able to work for a little while. Potentially, something happens in their family, which means they just aren't able to support themselves financially as well as they would have done before. So, having those contingency plans, I know they're not very fun to think about, and it can
Mm.
be a really difficult conversation sometimes.
Yeah.
But part of my job as a financial advisor is to talk to people about, okay, say this happened, what what would you do? And if you don't have a plan in place right now, this is the perfect opportunity to put that in place.
Yeah. And what are the simple things that some of our listeners can start doing today then?
So, in terms of planning for the future, I think the first step really is to have real clarity of your current financial situation. So, this is
Hmm.
something I do when I sit down with clients for the first time. I will review everything they've got, all their assets, any liabilities or debts,
Yeah.
mortgages, what is their income now? What do they expect their income to be next year, for example?
Hmm.
What investments and pensions they've already got in place. I will do a full review of everything they've got right now to
Yeah.
understand their current financial situation. I think a lot of us avoid looking at it altogether. We might have an idea of how much we've got in the bank today. We might not know how much we've got in our pension.
Yeah.
So actually having it all on paper in front of you, for some people can be really confronting because they've not done that before.
Mm.
But everyone always says, once I've done that exercise, I feel so much more in control. It's not just this unknown that's running away from me in my bank account, for example.
Yeah.
The next thing is to think about your future. So, what do you want your future to look like? So, sometimes when I'm talking to younger clients, they don't know what age they want to retire or what retirement might look like, and that's totally fair enough. So, the
Hmm.
goal in that example would be to, yeah, keep your options open. So, be
Yeah.
able to save enough so that you have lots of options when you get to that age.
Yeah, of course.
So I would say that would be the first step yeah, taking control of your finances, knowing where you are now, where you want to be in the future,
Yeah.
and yeah, figuring out if there are any steps that need to take place in order to bridge that gap.
It's interesting that you're talking about zooming out again. I think seeing the bigger picture, really interesting. So when and why would someone seek a financial advisor then?
Yeah, so I think what generally happens is that people misunderstand what a financial advisor does.
Hmm.
Most people will think, okay, a financial advisor is someone that I go to when someone's handed me a bunch of money. So, say I've inherited some money.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what the best thing to do with this money is, so I'll go to a financial advisor. So certainly, some people will come to a financial advisor in that circumstance and get the help that they need.
Hmm.
And other people will come to a financial advisor when things have gone wrong or unexpected. So, say relationship changes such as divorce, where you do have to split your finances in half. Getting some advice can be really helpful in those ways. So, there are some significant life events where it is quite obvious where you'd go to a financial advisor for that help.
Hmm.
The less obvious reasons people would come would be actually, I want to be a bit more financially literate, or I've got some savings, but I'm following a podcast that I listen to. Some guy on a podcast told me to stick it in this fund, so
Yeah.
I'm doing that, but I'm not mega confident that that's the right thing to be doing. So a
Yeah.
financial advisor can really help you to decipher whether that is the right thing for you,
Hmm.
and to get that tailored advice as well in terms of what to do with your money and the strategy that you can build for your life moving forwards. So
Yeah.
it's really having that overview of where you are right now, again, where you want to be in the future, and creating the right personalized strategy for you in order to get to that place. Because it's not really something that you want to be messing around with. Some people may have some extra surplus income that they want to play around with and they find investments fun.
Yeah.
I think I'm all for that if they have a solid plan in place and that's kind of their money to experiment with. But if it's something that is really important for you to save up for this future goal,
Hmm.
then yeah, why not get some personalized financial advice where you can get that yeah, someone who's done it before for many people
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah, sure. So we've covered a lot on this chat already, Tiff. What would be one final key takeaway that you give to potentially someone looking to change their career?
Yeah, I would say that if you're feeling nervous about changing your career, it's potentially because you've not met many people who've done it before,
Hmm.
and seen that it's okay and it's normal and it can work out really well.
Hmm.
So, any way that you can normalize that for yourself, because perhaps you've already done the exercise where you've zoomed out, you've looked into the future, you know that a career change is the right thing for you, but you're kind of afraid to take that step.
Yeah.
Perhaps it is surrounding yourself with people who have done it before. If you don't know anyone personally, reaching out on LinkedIn to people.
Yeah.
Listening to podcast stories of people who have changed their careers as well can be really helpful,
Mhm.
just so that you can start feeding your brain information that this is something that is done on a
Mhm.
regular basis. People succeed. Why can't it be the same for me as well?
Are there any particular podcasts that you'd recommend listening to?
Ooh, I listen to so many podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, not specifically for career changes. I think I listen to a lot of podcasts where every now and then they do have someone who's changed careers quite a few times, and I
Yeah.
find those helpful. But yeah, I guess if anyone's listening to this and they want some episodes to send that I'd recommend, yeah, message me because I can't think of them off the top of my
Yeah.
head. I'm sure once I get off this call, I'll have some.
That's perfect. And where can people connect with you then?
I'm most active on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
so yeah. Would you be able to leave my LinkedIn
Of course.
link?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so connect with me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I always reach out to people who I listen to podcasts with and just say hello and what I found to be really interesting. So I'd love for people to do the same here as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Tiff. I've really enjoyed this chat.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Callum.
Cheers. Bye bye.